Edwidge. Welcome to
Hello.
So excited to have you here today with me, and thank you so much for joining me. So to start, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are based, and what do you do?
Okay, I am Edwige Dro. I am a writer. I am a literary translator, and I am a literary activist, which means that I do my activism using literature. I am based in Côte d'Ivoire, and at the moment, actually, I am based at 1949. 1949, which is the Library of Women's Writing from Africa and the Black World that I set up in March 2020, so just before the pandemic. And it is a library that has the mission to unearth and amplify the contribution of African and Black women in order to inspire present and future generation. And so, yeah, so the vision is that the more we will have all of these women, whether they have written or not, because for me, literature is, sorry, there was something going by. For me, literature is oral as well as written. So the vision is that we will get to know all of these portrayal of women, and you know, and be us, step into our own power as women. That's the grand vision.
Amazing. I mean, I was very interested in talking to you because I saw your library when you set up the library. I was informed that you set up the library, and I was like, oh, wow, this is compared to the project I'm trying to do, is trying to put a light into women's life that have been buried and we don't talk very much about. There's that similarity, and I was really excited to see that you are doing that for other women in Africa, and also putting a light. It's not only African women, but also women from the diaspora, I think.
Yeah, from the diaspora. Yeah, yeah.
So that was really exciting. And how, I know you only had about a month before lockdown, I guess, before the COVID started. How was the reception of the library? How was people reacted to the library?
You know, the reception has been, has been great. I was going to say has been interesting, but maybe I used interesting in the bad context. I do not know. So, sometimes when people hear that it is the library of women's writing, so they wonder, oh, okay, so can men come there? And I say, yeah, men can. You just read women's writers from Africa and the Black world, so men can. Men are allowed to come into the space. It has been, great to have, literature there. At the moment, we are doing something called la titrologie littéraire. And titrologie in Côte d'Ivoire, it is I call it an art. So basically, you have every morning, you have a newspaper stand and people stand in front of them and read the headlines. And here we selected a book extract to have it outside, but to also have it on the table inside, because we set up like a little cafe restaurant where people can come and eat and drink coffee. This serves two purposes, I will say, to get people to actually come into the library. And it was deliberately chosen, but we are in a very hard neighborhood where the culture of library, where the culture of having these sort of spaces, it is not in the people's culture. So when they see that it is a library, the concept is, the concept doesn't even translate into their daily lives. But it's been great, therefore, to have people come in, to have people ask us, so what do you do here? Or it is a library, or it is also a library for grown-up, because sometimes also in this country, we tend to associate library with children, and we've deliberately not targeted children. We know that they are the future, but there can be no future if there is no present. So let's have the present. Let's, show them literature written by women, show them, portraits. So on the walls of the library, you have portraits of women, women like the Amazon, but also women like the Nana Banks, women like, Stephanie Sinclair, who was, a gangster queen in Harlem in the 20s. Women like, Josephine Gigi Wanja, who is our first PhD holder in this country, but whose name is not so much mentioned. So you have all of these portraits of women, and people are like, oh yeah, but I know her. She used to be on a banknote when I was younger, and that, create conversation. So this is what the purpose of this cafe restaurant is about: to have people come into the library. Let's have conversation, and also, we need to buy books. So that's another purpose.
Yeah, that is incredible. Really, really incredible. I also know that you've been involved in several anthology. You've been involved in Africa 39 and also New Daughters of Africa. And actually, I just before lockdown, some of the women in Bristol, where I am based, we did a reading of the New Daughters of Africa.
Oh
I
yeah!
read your story. I still haven't read your story, but I've only actually found out this morning you are in there. So there's so many writers in there that haven't even finished the book, so I need to look up for your story. How was the experience of working with all those women? I mean, I don't know if you met or if you had communication between the different writers in the book. How was that experience for you?
I did not have communication with the different writers. Some of the writers I know, some of them I do not know. But but I worked closely with Margaret Busby, who is the editor in chief of and the initiator of this project. And I was really honored, humbled, and privileged, and I use my words really carefully, that she chose to include me in New Daughters of Africa. I credit Daughters of Africa, so the first anthology, with giving me confidence to write as a writer from Cote d'Ivoire. I know that we talk about, African literature being this vibrant thing now, and, it is everywhere. But for me, coming from, a Francophone country, the African literature that I used to see was the African literature from many Anglophone countries, because perhaps because I was based in England at one point and I was reading, in English. So many Anglophone African literature, but especially Nigerian, literature. So I thought to write and to be taken seriously, you had to be Nigerian, or your story had to be based in Nigeria, because this is what the people wanted to see. This is what we talk about representation. And that is why sometimes when we talk about representation, I'm also thinking, yeah, let's not think that because we have, 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 or 30 African writers, therefore we have representation, because where are these writers coming from? So, and I actually started writing. I mean, I had never been to Nigeria at that point, but see me, I doing research on the internet to, to base my story, to set my story in Africa, in Nigeria, sorry. And then I read Daughters of Africa, and I saw these different portrayals of women, in a condensed form. I know I had read Veronique Tajo before and all of those people, but, to see all of these different stories set everywhere in the world, I was thinking, okay, so I can set the story in Cote d'Ivoire. D'accord? I will set the story here, and on y va. So yeah, exactly. So then being approached by Margaret Busby and say, oh, would you like to write a story? I was like, my God, would I like? Of course I would. So I did.
That's amazing. I mean, it had such an impact, that book, to so many women over here, and I think all over around the world, to be honest. It's been such an incredible different women. I actually know a few people in there, but every time I keep finding new writers in there every time I open the book.
And different styles of writing also. So yeah.
So my project is really around African queens and African kings, and this series is really called Step to the Throne. So I wanted to ask you what the word queen means to you. Does it resonate at all? Does it, especially African queen, what does that mean to you?
For me, an African queen is a woman who steps into herself, into her power. So she does not need to be, because, you know, if you're going to be a queen in the traditional sense that we know, then you have subject. It is actually very interesting because, you know, obviously I've been setting up the library. I thought this was just a hobby, which, you know, in my head it still is. But it is a space, so I'm always like, you know, adding this and thinking of this, and I was telling my mother last time, my goodness, I thought this was going to be just set it up and sit down, but you know, it is taking resources, mental resources, because of the area, how to attract people, what activities to do, and obviously material and financial resources. And she was telling me the story of the woman I am named after, who is now long dead, and she's my ancestress. You know, and I know a story, but you know, she told me more detail. This is a woman, because I was telling somebody, oh, you must clean it, you know, it must shine, and she was telling me, my God, you are so much like, you know, this woman you are named after, because she liked everything clean. She was living in a village. She's my father's aunt, but she liked everything to be clean. She was not for domesticity. So even in that village, this woman will get, young girls to come and wash her clothes, because she was not into all of this cooking, you know, washing clothes and everything. She had a few taxis in a city, so that's where she got her money. She chose not to have children. And I was thinking, wow. And you know, today in this society, in a modern society, I live in a very urban, city, Abidjan. I have traveled, but we deal with pressures of society, pressures of you must be married, you mustn't talk too loud, you mustn't have so much money, you mustn't aspire to be rich. You mustn't aspire to all of these things. Yeah, I think like Chimamanda say, be rich but not too rich. Be intelligent but not too intelligent. Be ambitious but not too ambitious. And we deal with that pressure. And I took so much encouragement from that ancestress of mine, who chose to be rich and very rich. She was rich, huh? Who chose? Oh yes, she had some dough, that woman. Who chose not to be involved in domesticity because she just did not like it. Who had a wonderful, lovers. Some of whom knew each other, and some of whom did not know each other. She lived on a term, and when I think of queen, I think of women, especially African women, who live on their terms. Because if we're going to be listening to this our society, we will have 10 children and there'll be nobody to look after these 10 children. And then people will say, but why did you go and have 10 children? So I think sometimes you just need to tell people, I will live as I see fit. So for me, that's an African queen.
Yes, definitely. You have to live in your power. I agree totally.
Yeah.
So you talk about your ancestress. Is there anybody else you look up to, or you admire or inspired you as you grow up, or even now, to carry yourself as an African woman, or help you with your work? Is there anybody else that inspired you?
There are many others. I always say I do not like good women. So I do not like good women at all. And for me, a good woman is, a woman who is not, working or walking according to societal expectation. So of course, there is this ancestress of mine. Of course, there is my mother that I, really admire a lot. She's a great woman, and I'm not just saying that because I came out of her, but she really is a great woman. A mantra to me has always been il faut oser, you must dare. So from the moment I was a little girl that I could comprehend, and I was struggling with some issue, she's always been, you must dare, you must dare. I also like Marie Corée, who was one of the women who marched against the colonizers here in 1949. It is, as I was writing a fictionalized biography, a story inspired me to set up actually this library, 1949. That's why I called it 1949, because again, this is a story that has been buried in part, or when it is, spoken about, they omit some of the successes of that march. So there was a successful march in August 1949 that is completely omitted. And I think that sometimes the stories of women, especially when it is successful, it is omitted, or it is not told in full. So these women were politicians, but they always say, like, women march to liberate their husbands, and they, again, that desire to portray the good woman. I mean, 2,000 women did not march to go and free 7 men. If they were all wives and sisters, we wouldn't have 2,000 women. Some of these women did not know these men, but they were, politicians, and it is good to give them, the status. But the reason why I like Marie Curie was that in that, the highest echelon of the women, they were all, intellectual women. They've been to school, they knew how to read and write, but she was in that group and she did not know how to read or write. She didn't even speak good French, but she was in that group, and the colonial administration really used to be scared of her, because whereby, some of the women had intellectual ways of organizing, let's write this, let's do this, let's, organize in this way. And sometimes the colonial administration will be aware of it. She used, a tradition. She used dance. She used the drum. She was a market woman. So as she was going to buy her tomatoes and plantain, so she will tell her sister, come to my place tonight, we have this meeting, and nobody will know, So I admire her. I admire women who are not good women. I do not like good women.
Yes, I forgot to ask you earlier. You just mentioned again about the women marching, and you name your library after them. So after the year they marched, so 1949. For those people, well, including me, who don't really know the history of Ivory Coast, can you tell us a little bit more who were the colonizer in your case, which I'm assuming would be the French?
Yeah, it was the French.
And what pushed this woman to march in 1949?
This story. So the colonizers, Cote d'Ivoire was a French colony. We had our independence, in August 1960. I will not go into the, how it was. Some say it was given to us. So, this is too complicated. But yes, but from about 1934 to 1944, rich plantation owner in Cote d'Ivoire organized into a syndicate. So it was called le Syndicat Agricole Africain. And the Syndicat Agricole Africain became the PDCI. So the PDCI was the political party, so the Ivorian section of the big RDA. So the RDA, Rassemblement Démocratique Africain. So the PDCI was that big thing. And the PDCI, there were other political parties, but the particularity of the PDCI was that intellectuals used to, felt the PDCI was for them, market traders, non-intellectuals. So everybody, so the PDCI from the north to the south, to the east, to the west, to the center, they felt that the PDCI was fighting for them. When the colonial administration realized that, they decided that this was not a good tactic. So France recalled the governor who was here, le gouverneur Latry, to France, and sent in a new governor called Péchou. And Péchou's mission was to break the PDCI. So Péchou came in 1946, towards the end of 1946, and with the mission of breaking the PDCI. In February 1947, he had managed to do that. There was a meeting of the PDCI and he arrested the 7 heads. There was 8 heads to the PDCI, but he arrested the 7 heads of the PDCI and sent them to prison. And then the colonial power was happy because they had managed, you know, the head of the PDCI was in prison. But what they hadn't counted with were the women that they just saw as just, you know, le petite femme. So the petite femme then decided, you know, were, you know, organizing themselves, because when the PDCI put all of these men in prison, they were working in the, you know, in the administration, the colonial administration. So they didn't have any salary, you know, and some of them who were occupying the administration houses were kicked out of these houses. But for 2 years, these women used to take food to their husband, to Bassam. Most of these women were living in Abidjan. Today, between Trècheville and Bassam, where they were, is about 45 minutes to an hour. But then, you know, the roads, we did not have this highway going to Bassam. So they were taking food, they were taking clothes, they were going there. So the colonial administration realized that, oh my God, we have a big power in our hand. So they started bribing these women, you know, bribing them with, you know, you can get a marketplace for nothing. The women said no. Some of them were bribed with money. The women said no. Some of them were bribed with cars, even. They said no. But they were organizing. And in Trècheville, so Trècheville was the base of the PDCI. On the 3rd, in the night of the 3rd of August, 1949, one of the women who was a palm wine seller was arrested, you know, for nocturnal noise. So she got taken that same night, taken to Bassam to prison again. In the morning, the women realized. So they came to Marie Curie, you know, so that woman I mentioned earlier on, they came to Marie Curie's home. I mentioned that Marceline Sibo has been arrested. And that's when the women decided we're going to Grand Bassam. That's it, we are going to Grand Bassam. They have put our, you know, our husband in jail for all of these, you know, time. Our children are not having, you know, adequate food to eat. Our children are being bullied at school because they are telling them your father is, I don't know, you know, is in jail. So they went to Bassam on that 4th of August. And they made so much noise that on that same day, the colonial administration released Marceline Sibo. So the women returned back to Abidjan, triumphant. And they decided then that these men have been in prison for like 2 years. They have been writing to these newspapers. They have been, like, you know, using the pen and paper, and it has gone nowhere. So we will go back to Grand Bassam. So they organized, they decided, and this is where I love the story, because it wasn't about writing to the colonial power, writing to the, you know, doing the, you know, la grève de la faim, you know, hunger strike, nothing like that. They said we are going to go and we're going to pretend that we're coming to wish a Merry Christmas to the governor. So they dressed, you know, with they got flags, you know, the French flag, and went to Bassam, took their coaches and everything, and went to Bassam. By midday, there were about 200 women in Grand Bassam. And then the colonial administration said, no, last time we had so many women in Grand Bassam, we had problems. So they passed the message to Abidjan that no taxi driver should transport more than 2 women in their taxis. But then the women were still coming to Bassam. And by about 1 p.m., 2 p.m., they decided that nobody, no car should transport any woman to Grand Bassam. And that's when the women decided that, especially Marie Curie, she said, we were not born with cars, we will march to Grand Bassam. And so they marched to Grand Bassam, but they didn't march in group. You know, there were 2 women, they pretended that they were going to the farm, they pretended that they were going to visit this person, they had their babies on their back, and they went to Bassam. So they marched on the 22nd of December, 1949 to Bassam. And by that evening, there were about 2,000 women. They did not manage to free the men, but what they managed to do was that at least the men were judged, because all that time they spent in jail, there was no trial. So at least they brought about a trial. Marie Curie went to prison, actually. She was only released in 1950.
Wow.
In a nutshell, Christelle. This is a long story.
Wow, just an incredible story that, yeah, I think a lot more people need to look up for and need to read a little bit more about, because it's really amazing. what has been your main challenges and successes for you to get where you are today? You know, I mean, you're an literally activist. You've created your own library, you've written books. What's the challenges about also the successes?
You know, Christelle, I love challenges. Maybe I should stop saying that because I'm getting too many challenges. But I love challenges. I think I really come into myself when there are challenges. I'm like, yes, we will do this. We will do this. And we will not die trying. Oh no, I will live and see none of this dying trying shit.
You're a true activist. That is why.
Yeah, maybe. But you know, what got me into literary activism was that I am interested in this continent, you know, in this continent of Africa, because I am an African, not just an Ivorian, because the borders, these borders, I have families everywhere, you know. So I am an African, and I do not look at myself through the gaze of the, you know, the Westerners or the Asians or whatever. People can say what they want to say about this continent. That is their problem. That is their opinion to deal with. I am not here to tell to anybody, oh no, see how amazing this continent is. Oh no, you know, we are not all living on, you know, with less than $1 a day. I am not interested. If you do not have that intelligence to know that, you know, there are all kind of societal things, I am not, you know, this is not my problem. My problem is that us within the continent needs to engage in conversation. And I think that the way we can engage better in conversation is personally through literature. That is how I, you know that the electrical company in Nigeria is called NEPA. You know, there is no, you know, society, there is no report that will tell me that. That is how I know, you know, about what is happening in South Africa, what is happening in Madagascar, what is happening in Gabon. But I realized that we do not have, I mean, in the 60s, in the 70s, we had an exchange of literature. It was happening. So we can know, you know, we can read, you know, I could read the Old Man and the Meadows, talk about it to my grandfather who did not know how to read or write, but him sharing, you know, through that book, him sharing his story of, you know, being under the forced labor to me telling him that, you know, we need to have a proper conversation about our first president's legacy, him telling me that, you know, so, you know, about the forced labor that we had under colonial power in Cote d'Ivoire, but it was through book that we had all of these things. But now I noticed that there wasn't this exchange of book. We are in this country, we call ourselves African, but really, you know, we you know, people do not know what, you know, what is happening next door. People do not know what is happening in Burkina Faso. People do not know what is happening in Kenya. You know, who are the writers, who are the thinkers, who are the people shaping society. And for me, and so that is, you know, that is why I'm a literary activist. That is why I'm a literary translator. That is why I take part, you know, I facilitate creative writing workshop. I facilitate literary workshop. It is for that purpose, the purpose that we need to engage in conversation. That is why I have the, you know, the library. And it isn't just because I've also noticed that women's stories were not being told. We cannot develop a continent because we, you know, through our stories, then we will know what do we understand by development, not what somebody else is saying. What to us is development. And then, you know, but we need to have the stories of these women also there. So for me, I think that's the challenge, but it is a passionate challenge for me. So, you know, and it is embedded in my life. So I am not, you know, it is not a difficulty for me. I am not sitting down every morning and saying, oh my God, today I must work. No, if I don't want to, I don't. Yesterday, I just spent the day on Netflix. Basically, I did not do any work yesterday at all. I just watched Netflix and stayed in my pajama from morning till noon. So much so that my mother called me and said, what's up? I said, nothing. I'm just chilling. So yeah, I don't make it a big deal.
Yeah. And what's been your success and maybe the qualities that really drive you to keep you going and yeah, not questioning these challenges? Because I think For some people, it's not that easy just to keep going. When challenges happen, they find it a bit difficult. So I wonder what are the qualities you use to keep you going?
Successes, I really, one thing I've decided to do in this year, 2021, is to pat myself on the back a bit more. I am very hopeful. I am, optimistic. I'm a realist, yeah. So, but I need to pat myself, on the back a bit more and say, girl, you are doing a lot, yeah, and you are doing well. So, the qualities, I don't know. I think I have this inner drive in me to to create good things. I like good things. I like beautiful things. um I have this value of excellence. I really, really do. I have the value of excellence. I want it to be, of course, I need to be careful that it doesn't fall into perfectionism and I'm not doing anything. Okay, if it can be perfect, we're not going to do it. So no, I have the value of excellence. I want something, and my creativity. But I think, yeah, I love challenges. So if this is my quality also, I think the fact that I love challenges. If you tell me that the area that I set up the library in, I could have set it up in a very middle class area and it would have worked. But I'm like, but why? Why must it be set up there? Okay, I have the means to live in a very middle class area. And I can stay there, but let's have a look even at our country. From 1999, we had this coup d'etat, and we had a rebellion in 2002. Then we had all of these women, pregnant women who were cut open, by the militaries. We had rapes, we had, people being burned. Why such violence? And I think that when you also come to Abidjan, you notice the violence. People say, no, you don't, I'm like, yeah, you do. When you're in a capital city and people are like, as soon as the light goes green, and like, Pepe, you hear, the sound of, I don't know how you say it in English, the klaxon. You hear this, the sound of horns, beeping everywhere, and people insulting each other. And I'm like, it is for me, that's violent. And why is there such violence? Because even in this city of Abidjan with its 4 million people, you have, the area where I set up the library, it has 1.2 million people officially. And it has the same superficial area as the middle class, the high middle class neighborhood. But the high middle class neighborhood has 200,000 people. So people have the opportunity to have space, to wander, to think. And when you see space, your mind can think. But here in this neighborhood, people are, on top of each other. They go to work, they are stuck in traffic jam. To be at work for 8 o'clock, they need to leave the neighborhood at maybe, at 6 a.m. for those who have cars, or 5 a.m. for those who do not have car. And if they are getting up at that time, if they are, leaving home at that time, what time are they getting up? And when they are coming in the evening, again, they are in a, traffic jam of 2 hours. All of these things create frustration. Because, well, we are just going to work in a nice neighborhood and then we are coming. And then there are no cultural center in their neighborhood. So if they need to go out again, they need to take that same traffic jam to go to the nice neighborhood and come back. What are you telling to people? Some of you deserve to be in a nice neighborhood, and some of you deserve not to be in a so nice neighborhood. And the day there is just a little tension, the frustration. Then people are raping people left, right, and center. They are cutting open women, because really, why do you need to cut open a pregnant woman to take out a baby? Who are you? But it is that, because people are frustrated. So for me, that's the challenge. And that's why I decided to set up the library here. I'm like, no, it will be beautiful and it will be here and people will come because I make sure they do.
No, I think that is just, yeah, it is kind of eye-opening for me to realize, because I don't really know how life is in Ivory Coast, but just trying to imagine the traffic jam and what people's life must be. It's definitely is incredible that you set up the library in that neighborhood, because it's so valuable for this community. Well, I've got one final question for you. And I think, like I said, that I think you've covered some of it when you mentioned about being a queen is to live in your own town, but also being daring. So my question is, if you had one piece of advice to a younger generation, what would you tell them? Or if you have to step back in time and tell yourself, a younger self, what would you tell yourself?
I think I'll tell myself what my mother told me: just dare, just dare to. I would, I would have told my, my 20-year-old self, you are great. There is nothing wrong with you. You are great, just as you are. And this is what I tell my daughter every time, because she doesn't like making mistakes. And I always tell her, oh, today I've made about like 100 mistakes. And she's like, yes. I was like, yeah, but I'm not stressed about it, because, if you do not make mistakes, then you do not learn. That means you are not learning. So you need to make mistakes. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, even at the library, I was like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But that doesn't mean I'm going to compromise or just, reduce my values. I want this paint color, and this paint color is what I am going to have, even if it's expensive. So I'm always like, okay, let's do, how much is it? How much is it? I was like, okay, then I will save, with regards to that, but I will not compromise on my values. I want this place to be like this. I want this type of books to be there. I want good books. I want, well-written books. And when I want to do event, I just set it up. Any people come, I have in my head that I want at least 10 people to come. But even when one person comes, I just we are doing some English conversation with young, teenagers at the moment. I want 10 teenagers per session. We just have 2 at the moment, but with these 2, we work really, really well, because this is, it is those values of excellence. So I will tell a younger self, just do what you want to be doing. Don't compromise on your value. It won't fail, because you are doing it. You are doing you.
Yes. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much. And yes, there's a lot of good advice there. Don't compromise on who you are. Be there. Use challenges as a learning tool. So yeah, free amazing advice. Thank you so much, Edwidge. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Oh no, thank you so much. I'm glad it has happened now, and I wish you the best of luck with this.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I wish I can come and visit the library at some point.
Oh, you can. And when it is, when the project is done, let us know, so that we can share our ends, we can organize events around it.
Yes.
Those sort of things.
Do you have a website?
Not yet, but we're in the process of building it.
Okay. So do share with me too when you have that, so I can share.
Yeah. No problem. Thank you so much, Christelle.